Hello, and welcome to the All About Repositories webinar series featuring a session on enabling open scholarship hosted by Sun Microsystems, DuraSpace, and Spark. My name is Carol Minton Morris, and I am the Director of Marketing and Communications for the DuraSpace organization. Today, I'm joined by Greg Grossmeyer from Creative Commons. We'll take the next 45 minutes to fill us in on what Creative Commons is and why using Creative Commons licenses not only supports scholarship, but in some cases has even helped creators turn a profit. Greg works for Creative Commons as a community assistant where he is the liaison with the free Libre open source software FLOSS community, where he enables software developers to learn about and implement Creative Commons metadata support in FLOSS applications. Greg also currently holds two positions at the University of Michigan as a copyright specialist at the University Library and the other as an open education specialist at the Open Michigan Project. We have some upcoming webinars that we'd like you to take note of. The All About Repositories webinar series continues with the Internet Archive, Web Archive, and Sun's Modular Data Repository at the end of the month on January 27th. Mid-February, on February 17th, we're going to be featuring Fedora 3.3 and DSpace 1.6. This will be a technical update on new features and ways that the software can help you implement better repositories. And lastly, on February 24th, we're going to be featuring a webinar on the challenge of data conservation. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Greg Grossmeyer. Greg?
Hello, everyone. Hope you can hear me pretty well. So I'm going to be talking about open scholarship today. And let's see, fancy slides. Okay, there we go. So open scholarship. Well, first let's define what I'm meaning by that. So my definition, just my personal definition, is scholarship that is produced and disseminated in such a way that all interested parties are able to participate. That needs a few caveats, though. So scholarship that is produced and reproduced. So reproduced for validity and ensuring that the results are accurate. And then, all interested parties, of course, not everyone can participate in all science. There is some requisite knowledge required. And then we want to be able to use and reuse the results of scholarship. So not only just view them and read them, but also to share them with other colleagues and possibly even make derivatives of them. So that's my definition of open scholarship. Well, why would we want to participate in this open scholarship thing? Well, in academia, which is made up of a lot of people that look like that, and they write a lot of journals and articles, and hopefully a lot of books, and possibly some source code, along with producing large and large amounts of data. And hopefully they're doing the job right. They'll also be teaching some students and producing some educational materials. All those things can, and I argue, should be shared. We all just love to share, obviously. So, but why would you want to share? Well, first of all, in academia, made up of professors and students who produce source code, books, journals, data, educational materials, all those things were built on other people's things. You've heard it before. But also, other than just this pure altruistic sharing for the goodwill of humanity, there's other reasons to share things. So for a specific example in data sharing, this does not come through very well, but I will tell you what the numbers are. So experience with data sharing. This was a study done by David Blumenthal in 2006, and he did a survey of researchers that are sharing their data. So the baseline is everyone is sharing, and he asked what their experiences were with the outcomes of that sharing. And about 45%, I believe it is, had a positive-only experience with sharing their data. And then somewhere around 35 or 37 had a mixed outcome, and only about 15 to 17% had a negative-only outcome. So that means that while there's about 80% of the people that shared their data or 80% of the people that shared their data had a positive or mixed outcome. Only 15% had a negative outcome. So the experiences are overwhelmingly positive in some regard. And also more quantitatively and important for advancement in your tenure track professors, articles that have the data shared associated with the findings, their citations are dramatically higher than the citation counts for articles that do not share their data. The reasonings for this are probably many, and it didn't delve too much into it. But obviously, reevaluating test results, if you can reassure everyone that the results that you got are true by everyone else performing the same test and getting those same results, they are more likely to trust you and build off of your work. And there's tons of data sharing right now, and it's growing year by year. This is a graph of gene sequences and 3D structure databases from the Genome Project, and as you can see, the trend is up and up and up and up. And of course, the usual suspects, journal articles and books, we always want to promote open access in all its forms for those materials. And in open access citation counts, so this is not necessarily with articles that have the data shared, but just purely everyone in the world being able to read the articles, those articles tend to show a measurable increase in the number of citations year after year after they've been published. So as you can see here, it's about a 1.5 or 1 citation per year increase. While that doesn't seem too significant, it could lead to better chances of getting tenure or further collaborations down the line. But how do we share things? Well, it all rests itself on the concept of open standards. And this slide is based off of this concept kind of being championed by Joey Ito, the CEO of Creative Commons. He likes to refer to the stack of communication. So on the very bottom there, you see Ethernet, which is an open standard that enables the basic physical connections between computers, just easily sending zeros and ones back and forth. And then on top of that, you have TCP/IP, which is the basic routing standard, also an open standard in some definitions of open standard, that allows communication among multiple computers. And then on top of that, you have the basic containers of information, so HTML, XML, open document formats, other things like that, that can actually that humans can start to make sense of the information being shared among the computers. And then on top of that, even there's this legal stack, or part of the stack, which, while we haven't really dealt with it too much in past years, it's starting to become more of an issue. And this is where CC licenses and waivers really make things possible. So for the next 2 slides, I'm going to focus on that part of the stack, knowing that the bottom parts of the stack are all solid and will be there tomorrow. So the reason why we need this, though, is copyright. And what is copyright? So in the U.S., copyright is defined, or is set out in the Constitution, and Congress has the right to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for a limited time to authors and inventors the exclusive rights to their respective writings and discoveries. So basically what that gives creators is a bundle of rights, and that bundle includes things like the right to reproduce the work, to make derivatives of a work, to distribute the work to other users, to perform the work in public, or to display the work in public, and to license any and all the above rights to other people. So only the original creators of works have those rights. And how do I get copyright? Well, let's put that in a more grammatically correct question format. How do I see copyright protection for my work? Well, first it must meet some basic requirements. It has to be original. You can't just copy someone else's work and copyright that. It must also have some level of creativity. That level of creativity is very small or very low. And it must also be in a fixed medium. So an ephemeral speech. So pretend I'm not being recorded right now. If I'm just talking with you, the words from now on are not copyrighted. But as soon as someone puts on tape or records it, that recording is copyrighted. And copyright protects scenes, choreography, music, all visual arts and film, and even architectural works. What it doesn't protect, though, are ideas. So there's this idea representation dichotomy, or idea expression dichotomy. You can't copyright the underlying ideas or facts of a work, just your original expression of those ideas or facts. And it doesn't protect data mostly. There's some gray areas in there. And useful articles, so things that are covered by patents. And in the old days, how you would get copyright protection is you would need to put a copyright symbol on it, provide a date, and register it with the U.S. Copyright Office. Today's, you don't need to do anything. It's copyrighted the instant it is written down, or the instant it is created, or the instant it's recorded in a fixed medium. They're thus creating some legal headaches for people downstream. Because copyright protection lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. For now, most likely the way things are going, that will increase. So don't make any sure bets on that never changing. But after that, after the life of the author plus 70 years, it enters to what is called the public domain, where there are no rights associated with copyright. Anyone can freely use and redistribute and modify a work. And in response to this either all or nothing method of controlling information, Creative Commons stepped in and created this suite of licenses. So obviously it's kind of confusing, this whole copyright and sharing thing. So here's the landscape of media today. There's people making movies, writing songs, making a painting, taking photographs, writing a book, even a dinosaur. And back in the old days, if you made a painting, if you painted a painting, you could either hang it on your wall, give it to a friend, or sell it to someone for money. But in today's days, with the advance of digital technologies, you can do all three. You can print it out and put it on your wall, you can print it out and give it to a friend, or send a digital file to a friend, and sell it to someone else for money. All of these things are possible because you can make multiple copies of the same work. But as soon as you receive, or someone else receives a copy of that work, they are restricted on what they can do with it because of copyright law. All downstream uses are restricted. And this applies for all types of media, all things that copyright covers. And that's where Creative Commons comes in. So there's a suite of 6 licenses. Don't worry about the words too much here on this page. I'll go over them one by one. The first module, so there's 4 modules. The first module is attribution, and that basically means you can share this work, just attribute me, just give me credit where credit is due, basically. You can make derivatives of it, you can give it to your friends, but just make sure there's a link back to me. So in words, you let others distribute, display, and perform your copyrighted work only if they give you credit. And all the licenses have this requirement, have this attribution requirement. The next module is called non-commercial, and that basically means you can do whatever you want with it, just don't use it for commercial purposes. Don't make money off of my work. Only I am the one that can do that. So you let others copy, distribute, display, perform your copyrighted work, but only for non-commercial purposes. The next one is non-derivative, which basically means you can use my work, share my work, perform it, just don't make any changes to it. Don't kill my dinosaur and scribble over my mountain. So you let others copy, distribute, display, only if no changes are made. And then there's this concept of share alike, this copyleft thing, where if you make a change to the work, your resulting derivative must also be licensed under the same license that I provided the work to you in. So you can see this inheritance kind of thing going on there, where someone took my original and added more trees to it. And their work is also under the same license which I provided the work in. And then someone took that work and made it in the nighttime as opposed to the daytime. That work also is under the same license as my original work. So you let others copy, distribute, display, and perform it as long as any derivative work is licensed under the same license. So if you take those 4 modules and match them up, you get 6 different licenses. Here they are listed in big format. Here they are in the spectrum from least restrictive to most restrictive. So on the left side we have the public domain, no rights reserved. free for all. You can do whatever you want with it. William Shakespeare, I can quote, I can make derivatives, I can not even give them attribution if I don't want to. But still, you do want to cite your sources. And on the other side, you have all rights reserved, which is you have to ask permission for every little thing you do. So the Creative Commons license is still in that spectrum between there. Everything from the attribution only, attribution share like, attribution non-commercial, and all the way down to non-commercial no derivatives, which basically just means you can share and perform it, just don't make money and don't make changes to it. And the licenses come in two different forms. The first form is what most people see, and that's called what we call the human readable deed. And so this is the human readable deed for the attribution share like license. Basically it says in what it sounds like human readable language what it is you can and cannot do. So you're free to share and remix this work as long as you give attribution and you share alike. And share alike is defined because it's not a usual concept for people. But underneath that is what gives our licenses the teeth legally. It's the legal code. It's the lawyer readable deed. And this is 5 pages of legal text that you're welcome to read and make sure it makes sense. I spent enough time reading this to tell you that it makes mostly sense. And if you have any questions, you're free to email us. But the human readable deed does summarize it fairly well. But then even behind that, if you view the source of the Creative Commons license pages, you'll see this RDF. And this RDF tells machines what it is that license means. So there's human readable, the lawyer readable, and the machine readable. So you can see here gobbledygook about where this RDF standard is defined, and then it says the license permits redistribution or reproduction, and the license permits distribution, but it requires notice and it requires attribution and it permits derivative works, but it also requires share alike. So you can see those things that there's a lot of verbiage going on there, but the basic concept there is pretty simple. And then you can use that same RDF in your own works. So this is the source, or from the source code of my own page. So you'll see at the top, it says my presentation, which that then says property title. So you know that the title of the work. And then you'll see by Greg Grossmeyer, and then inside that RDF thing it says attribution name, which means the person that you need to attribute it to, is licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. And then that link has this rel equals license, which means it's not only a link, but it's a link to the license for the work. So a machine, a search engine, can use this information and build a database of not only what's available, but what license the work is available under. So basically, and what this does is web browsers see a very basic representation of a work. They see, headline, subheadline, italics, body text, links, and that's it. Very simple HTML tags. But if we add in this extra RDF information, the browsers will be able to see what the humans see. So humans see title, author, publication date, body, tags, and a copyright license. And if we add in the RDF data, the web browsers will be able to see that too. And most importantly, the search engines will be able to see that stuff too. So what, really? Well, for the licenses, Flickr comes as a good example. So Flickr, you'll see that it has a homepage for Creative Commons license material that allows its users to upload. So users can upload photos that they take, and they have a choice of licenses under a CC license. And as of, I think, a couple days ago, there were over 130 million photos on Flickr that you can freely use and share with your friends under some CC license. And then in the realm of news, so Al Jazeera has done a lot of interviews with people in the Gaza Strip, and they not only have produced news footage for it that they've broadcasted, but they've made available the raw footage that they took. So if you don't agree with what they said, you can go take that raw footage, mix it up, make your own commentary, and broadcast it yourself. The only requirement they ask is that you attribute to them where you got the footage from. And then one of the main examples is Wikipedia. They just recently switched to a CC license, an attribution share alike license. which enables them and others to build upon other people's work and make one of the widest and most comprehensive encyclopedias ever created, basically. And then also, in the music industry, there are more and more musicians that are using CC licenses. One of the most well-known examples is Nine Inch Nails. They have released a few albums, actually, under a CC license. This one specifically is called Ghost 124, and it's available in multiple different formats. So you can download just the songs for free under a CC license, or you can pay for it if you want to. You can pay $5 for that download, or you can pay $10 for a disc set, or $40 for the vinyl, or $75 for this deluxe edition, or $300 for this autographed Uber Deluxe Ultra edition. And they made these options all on the first day of releasing this album. And after the first week, they amassed over $1.6 million in sales, over just 750,000 purchases. But more importantly, I feel, the pre-orders of that Ultra Deluxe Uber Duber edition for $300 sold out in 3 days. For stuff that the content of which users could download for free. So I've been talking about metadata and RDF before, and it sounds like a lot of work adding in all this extra metadata to your pages and around your content. What does it really give you? Well, simply it gives you discoverability. So currently, just recently, a few months ago, or half a year ago or so, Google allows you to search by license type of anything on the web. It includes web pages, images, anything like that. And it doesn't use exactly the same terminology as a CC licenses, but it's actually just parsing for CC licenses. So you can look for things that are labeled for reuse, or labeled for commercial reuse, or reuse with modification, etc. So this is a search I did for Mushroom that is for images that are available for reuse. And you can see things from Flickr come up, but also things from people's blogs and other websites, including a geography website in the UK. And Yahoo does the same thing. And this is actually a screenshot of search.creativecommons.org, where we kind of put together a variety of different search engines that allow you to search by license type. Not only Google, but Yahoo and Flickr and BlipTV and Jamendo and Wikimedia and other resources like that. So you can find content if you want to use only content that you can reuse legally. And in the education field, there's this new project called Discover Ed, which does the same thing. It searches various repositories of educational content and includes information about its license status. So you can see the arrow pointing at the license of attribution non-commercial for that Brazilian journal of microbiology. Again, a search for mushrooms, kind of the shiitake mushroom. And so that enables researchers to find information that they can build upon and make new versions of legally. But, again, so what? Well, all of this, all the infrastructure, this metadata, and the legal licenses enable what I term open scholarship. So, for example, in education, there's this concept of OER, or Open Educational Resources. And the OER definition is pretty simple. So an OER are educational materials and resources offered freely and openly for anyone to use and under some license to remix, improve, and redistribute. So a big part of that is the remixing, improving, and redistributing. So not only just seeing those educational resources and being able to view them on someone's webpage, but being able to take them and build upon them, make them better, and use them in your own classroom. So that the salient parts, again, are the freely and openly for remix and improvement. And I currently also work at this organization called Open Michigan at the University of Michigan, where we work in this field of open educational resources. And this is our homepage of our website that hosts all the OERs. And you can see on the left there that we have a few different colleges participating, or faculty from those colleges participating, engineering, public policy school, medical school, school of education, nursing, school of information. And this is an example of one of the course homepages. So you can see it's an intellectual property class offered at the public policy school. And we include things, like the basic information like syllabus and the lecture slides, not only in PDF format, but in the source format, the PowerPoint files, so that others can more easily edit and remix these materials. And then we also include student materials if they still want to. So there's a couple papers here, one from a coworker of mine, Kathy Ludwig, actually, and our student, Dale Myers. And this is not all students participate in this just because they feel like their opinions might not be the most, what's the good word for it, correct for wide consumption, but if you feel like you need to get your name out there early on in your academic career, this is a good way to do it. And, including student presentations, one from me, obviously, on the Google Book settlement. But that enables the other people to use those educational materials and build off of them. Really, the point is for others to see those and take them and remix them and make them their own. And in data, back to the data issue again, if you share your data, your research data, the data from Wikipedia, for example, or other projects, you can see in the kind of the center left, I forgot to make this colorized so you can read it easier, but there's this project called DBpedia, where a bunch of arrows are pointing at right now. And that is actually a database built on the information contained within Wikipedia. There's all kinds of actual facts contained within Wikipedia, including, birth and death date of authors, or discography lists, or their heirs, or children and grandparents, etc. All this really quantifiable information, and it was put into a searchable database and made open for others to use and reuse under the terms of a CC license. And now other databases out there, other web services are linking to it. That's what those arrows are indicating. So things like the World Factbook, or GeoNames, or Freebase, which is another open encyclopedia. And you can see all these connections that go everywhere, and you can see how they connect to even projects like the Association of Computing Machinery, or Libris, or ePrints, and all these are projects that are in the library world. So this sharing of data enables these great projects and these great mashups to happen. And most importantly, I would argue the reproducibility and the new discoveries that this encourages. So not only being able to make this cool new mashup of information, but being able to reproduce someone's work and verify any results. And then, on top of that verification, creating new discoveries or finding new discoveries in the field. And of course, don't forget the usual suspects of source code and journal articles and books, monographs. So here's a few examples, actually, like the gold standards or the people that are making good experiments in this field of open sharing and scholarly communication. The Public Library of Science is one. All their material is under attribution-only license, available for everyone to view and download. Biomed Central, similar thing. They were very lucrative and sold to, I believe it was Elsevier for a large sum of money. And Hindawi, a journal a publisher out of Egypt, has a large number of journal titles, all under Creative Commons license, also very profitable each year. And Nature journal is starting this Nature Communications kind of accelerated peer review process system where materials are available under an attribution non-commercial license at a quicker pace, so that the peer review process doesn't take as long as a normal Nature publication, and it gets out there and is more easily accessible by others in the field and everyone online. So all this enables this concept of open scholarship for everyone, and all that is enabled by free and open licenses and the metadata that supports them. So with that, any questions? I actually burned through that a little bit quicker than I planned, so we have plenty of time for questions at the end. And I think someone will remind you how to ask a question using your phone.
Thank you. We will now begin the question and answer session. If you would like to ask a question, please press *1. You will be prompted to record your name. To To withdraw the question, please press star 2. Once again, to ask a question, you may press star 1. One moment, please, for our first question.
So I have one from Karen. Says Creative Commons licensing can also be built into various library systems, right? Very correct. Yes. So there are a few examples of that. Some library OPACs, online public access catalog, allows you to indicate what licensed material is under. And a good example of this is actually an OPAC not associated with a traditional library, but with the Open Library being developed by the Internet Archive, who will be speaking next week, or next month, I believe. And that allows users to search for materials, but also search for materials and books that are under a license for reuse. So Open Library, openlibrary.org, includes that license information for those books. And this information can easily be included into your own software that you're developing. We being Creative Commons provide a few different license toolkits, software toolkits for doing this. There's one project called LibLicense, which can easily read and write metadata information to files, so like Word documents and PDFs and things of that sort. And so that way the license information is embedded in the actual file, so no matter where that file goes, the license information is contained within it. And then also another project called LicenseChooser.js, which is just a simple JavaScript library that you can insert into your web page that allows users to just select a license, just answering two simple questions. If what they want to allow users to do and do not do with their work. And that information can be then fed into your web system after they make their selection. So it's similar to what Flickr does and what Wikimedia Commons does and projects of that sort. Whenever a user uploads content, they select a license for that work. So all those things are easy ways to incorporate CC licensing into your library systems. So I have one from Lexman. Why not publicly funded research is made open in all countries? Well, that's a good question. There are a few endeavors underway right now to encourage more open sharing of federally funded research here in America. Currently, there is a request for comments from the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House, asking for comments on whether to expand what's known as the NIH mandate, or NIH Open Access mandate. And that basically said that any research funded by the NIH, the research articles that are produced from that research must be shared in an open format to everyone worldwide, and under a CC license preferably. The questions that the OSTT has asked for comments on is whether they should extend that to all federally funded research. So research from the Energy Commission or other health institutes and things of that sort, whether all of that should be open by default. So basically what we need to do is contact your senators and all that good process of the usual trying to make change happen in your government. Unfortunately, it's something that Creative Commons can only do so much in. I mean, we encourage everyone to adopt licenses when it makes sense for them, but really it matters more when it comes from the people that will be using and creating that material. So a similar question, why are not libraries managed with public funds not kept open for all? I think that's pretty much the same answer, actually. So anything that's funded federally, just do your usual part of trying to make that happen. So one from Eric. So I showed several examples of where metadata is used to enable automatic use of CC licenses. Can I comment on how widely metadata is used by adopters of CC licenses? Well, it's kind of hit and miss, of course. We make it as easy as possible, using Creative Commons, make it as easy as possible for users to embed that license metadata in their works or in their web pages. So when you go to the Creative Commons web page and select a license, it spits back out at you an icon that you can put in your web page or next to your work, and it's an HTML code that you can just copy paste in there that says this work is licensed under this license and attribute it to my name. And that code, that HTML code, includes that RDF metadata. So if you don't touch that HTML code that we give you to copy and paste, it'll be there. And then Google can find that and use it and make sure your work show up in those specialized search results. We have some information about how many people use, or how many works are licensed under CC licenses, just generally based off of linkbacks and other searches. And those numbers are large. So Flickr is 130 million in and of itself. And then Wikipedia articles, there are thousands and thousands of those as well. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but it's obviously a very large number. And most of those are using the metadata, so things like Wikipedia and Flickr do. Yeah. Are there any other questions, or any questions from Eric? I explained that very well about adopters of metadata for CC licenses. I'll just wait a second.
Brandon, do we have any questions that come through?
We have no questions at this time.
So a good question from Joseph is, what is the background of Creative Commons at UMich? Is it associated with a particular department? Well, different departments have come to it at differing paces, I would say. So the Open Michigan project, which I'm part of, kind of came out of this collaboration between some people from the School of Information here and the Medical School and the Duderstadt Center. These members are all, or faculty from those various schools came together and decided this was something that we needed to do here, and using CC licenses was the preferred way of doing it, of ensuring that the content that we create and publish is available for everyone to use and reuse and build upon. And this was specifically in the arena of open educational resources. So yes, there is a couple of particular departments that it came from, but it's spreading in a good way, organically, I guess you could say, among professors. We don't try to do a top-down approach with this OER thing. We just want to go professor by professor and student by student to see the ones, or to find the ones that are encouraged to do this and want to do this and share their resources, and not only share their resources, but build on other people's resources. And that really needs to be a one-on-one, not top-down kind of approach. So, again, it started in a few different departments, but it is spreading. Thank you, Laxman. It was a very good presentation. Oh, yes, and of course, as Melissa Levine has said, the University of Michigan Library uses a CC license for all the content on their website. So if you go to lib.umich.edu, you'll see a CC license icon down there at the bottom that says that anything that's produced by the library, so nothing that's in our catalog, obviously, but our website, our library guides, and those things are available under a CC attribution non-commercial license. And as you might remember, I'm also employed at the library, so full disclosure there. Did UMich get university permission to add CC licenses? So that's an interesting question. So at the University of Michigan, all faculty retain copyright for their work. It's kind of this weird policy thing where when you become a faculty member, you sign a piece of paper that says all works are owned by the regents, but then the regents automatically give it back to you, no questions asked. So effectively, all copyrights are held by faculty. And this includes things like their journal articles that they publish, and their teaching materials. So there was no permission to seek from the university to add CC licenses to faculty's educational materials. It's purely their choice and their decision, which is why it's a good thing to happen organically, not top-down. We want the faculty to make that choice themselves and be on board. We don't want to tell them what they have to do. I think I missed one. So a couple of questions from Kathleen. How to properly cite a CC licensed object, and what CC0 is. That's a good question. So the first one, how to properly cite a CC licensed object, is a question that comes up a lot in many different contexts, because you want to be thorough in your citation, but also not be too verbose that it looks ugly, right? So the basic information that you want to include when you're citing a work that's licensed under a CC license is the name of the author, however they want to be attributed. It could be their real name, it could be their nickname online, their handle, the title of the work, so the name of the article or the title of the photograph, and the license name that they're releasing it under is important. So like a Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike, and then hopefully you can also include a link back to the original work. So if it was a Flickr image, a link back to that Flickr page that has that image on it, and then a link to that license information. So if it was Attribution Share Alike license, you will link to the actual license text. That way, anyone who sees that citation can know automatically who did it, what it's called, and where they can find out more information about it. And that way, they have all the information they need to move forward on that. And then CC0. So CC0 isn't a license, it's a waiver. It's a new project from Creative Commons to basically waive all rights associated with the work. What it does is you're basically saying, I waive all my copyrights and related rights to this work, and anything that I can't waive due to legal issues in my jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is a fancy way of saying country. So in some countries, you can't waive certain rights that are associated with the work, but for those rights that I legally cannot waive, I give everyone permission to use it anyways, and free permission and I won't take it back, I promise. And it's more than just a promise. Actually, it's fairly legally binding when you do this, when you release something under this CC0 waiver. And we encourage this for mostly works associated with databases. And in the arena of sharing data, there's this issue of attribution stacking. So while attribution is a very good idea and should be done to cite your sources, it sometimes doesn't make sense when building databases of varying sources. So that big convoluted graphic I had with the different circles and arrows, if I had to attribute not only the different sources of information, but also the authors that contributed to those different sources of information, my attributions page would be, the size of a normal book. So we encourage the use of the CC0 waiver for those instances when it makes sense for your use case to prevent this unneeded worrying about attributions. I mean, if people are going to use your database or your data set in research and write a publication about it, they will most likely, and if they don't, they will be ostracized with their community, cite their sources. So it's not an issue of plagiarism, it's more of an issue of technical limitations of attribution. A good example would be this project that printed off a hard paper-bound copy of the German Wikipedia entries. That needed, since it's under attribution share alike license, they needed to give attribution to every single author that had contributed to the German Wikipedia. They put that as an appendix to the back of the book, and it's about 30 pages long of very, 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 very small text, because there are thousands of contributors to just the German Wikipedia articles. And that's the kind of thing that the waiver tries to get around and not have to be an inhibitor in those aspects. So I hope that answers that. If you have any more questions about CC0, don't hesitate to ask or send me an email. And I think those are all the questions from the chat room, unless I missed something. Are there any other questions?
Well, great. Thank you so much, Greg, for this great presentation and your time today. I want to let everybody know that this presentation will be available for replay probably early next week on our website. And I want to thank everybody for participating. And our next webinar will be on Wednesday, January the 27th. We're going to hear about Internet Archive, a grand production or grand experiment in production. So we'll hear from Chris Carpenter, and we look forward to seeing you all then. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming, everyone.